ITC, though, that stock is holding out by 0.5%, and we spoke with the management. Rural India is showing a lot more resilience, and that is cushioning the pandemic. Now, in urban India, the government is taking lots of initiatives to reform the agri space. That's the word coming in from Sivakumar, the head of ITC's Agri division, who spoke with Ajaya Sharma, talking about the impact of that is expected from the reforms as well as the influx of agri startups. Let's listen in.
No, while these reforms, as in the three bills, which of the three acts now, which have been announced a few weeks ago, are only a part of the largest set of initiatives that the government has been rolling out in the recent past. I think one must see them on this larger canvas. While certainly these three acts in terms of getting the farmer and freeing him to sell to whoever he likes, even outside the existing APMC mandis, while APMCs will continue, as well as the new framework for contract farming and expanding the limits of Essential Commodities Act and making that more predictable. So while this is one set which has taken the larger part of narrative, there are a few other things that the government has been doing in the last few months, and so together with that, it really is very transformative. The second bit is really the new guidelines for FPOs, so that the farmers get collective and more empowered in engaging with the markets. If the first part of this initiative, the three acts, were to open the playing field to the market forces, the other three initiatives are ensuring that farmer participate duly empowered. So new guidelines for FPOs make them market oriented with direct participation of the value chain participants. The other is a very large fund allocation that has been done under the Agri Infrastructure Fund as part of the Atmanirbhar package for agriculture, post-harvest infrastructure on part of the farmers or FPOs, as well as for other allied sectors like animal husbandry and aromatic and herbal plants and micro-food enterprises. So as much as 1,75,000 crores has been put aside for this over the next 4 years. Part of that goes as subsidy, part of that as loans. The last piece is that much of this action can happen with the support of digital engagement with the farmer in view of lots of developments in this field over the last few years. So government, by collating the data that they have from various other schemes like soil health cards and PM Kisan and so on, putting together a foundational layer for creating a new digital ecosystem for Indian agriculture and the farmers and other value chain participants. So together, all of this is what really makes this transformative. That's my view, and slowly the uptake is very much there. There is still some opposition from a few corners, but nonetheless, I have seen actions on part of several states already putting together the teams and engaging with the FPOs and the market participants to create their own value chain clusters, what the state has competitive advantage, how should these new reforms be taken advantage. I think I've seen action in at least 6 or 7 states already.
Right. Mr. Sivkumar, very fair point. There have been a larger aim of, doubling farm incomes, etc. So there have been, Jan Dhan, be it DBT, and digital initiatives of, connecting the villages with online, etc. And then, of course, the three bills. But let's come to the point about the point which is, so what happens is we've grown up seeing in rural part of our country that if prices of the produce go too low, then there is an issue and farmers actually bear the brunt and the entire thing is thrown away or it gets wasted away. If the prices of the produce goes too high, then again there's an issue. How do you see a market-driven pricing of fair pricing of produce? Do you see that happen with the overall initiatives which are being taken, which have been trying to move towards in that direction? Does that look possible now?
Yeah, I think that's the fundamental transformation which will be accomplished through these reforms and other initiatives that I talked about. So conventionally, we have been a production-driven agricultural system because we were in an era of shortages. But as the surpluses came through, we became food self-sufficient, the consumer demands have changed. All of this meant that we need more demand driven. And the reason why the prices dropped so much, like you just mentioned, is because the farmers, for large part, tend to grow some of these crops based on last season's prices rather than coming season's prices. So how do you ensure that the demand signals get transmitted to the farmers? So there are multiple institutions. So in some commodities, that will come through the MSP mechanism. In some commodities, it will happen through the derivative market, the futures and options. In some commodities, it needs to happen through food processing industry and the contract farming. So any which way it needs to be created, and that what should get signaled to the farmer, so that the crop size is determined more based on the future rather than on the past. And the IT that I was talking about will really ensure that these signals actually pass from the micro consumer through the micro farmer through the various levels of aggregation and disaggregation. Of course, all of these will take, the new developments will take time to completely evolve. I would say where they already evolved to quite an extent. In some cases, it might happen.
Fair point. Of course, it will definitely take time.
Others might take 2 or 3 years.
Right. Sure, Mr. Sivakumar. Of course, this will likely to pan out in a more gradual fashion. How are you analyzing the acceptability of, digitization in rural India? Do you really see market-driven or say more latest scientific mechanisms of farming, etc.? How is the adaptability of our rural population towards these new ideas? Is there a resistance, or there is a way to work with them and explain to them and help them adapt to these newer technologies which are emerging in the field of agriculture?
No question of resistance doesn't even arise. I think it's just a question of how do you ensure that they are adopted well and they are scaled. So there are many building blocks will have to fall into place. Over the last few years, there are as many as 600 agri-tech startups which are participating in this sector. And many of these are point solutions or point products dealing with one aspect of the farming. So the second piece which must fall into place is really the integrating all these solutions and delivering them on ground, because their digital adoption is only so much, the literacy is only so much. So consequently, it needs to be through an assisted format, whether it is through the FPOs that I had mentioned earlier or through the village level entrepreneurs. So in addition to these various point solutions, the solutions integration and on-ground delivery mechanism, we call it a phygital model, because ITC e-Chopal is essentially participating in that space. And the third building block that is taking shape is the government's aspect in terms of the foundational layer with all the data that only government can bring to the table on scale. When all of these are done, these building blocks together will then translate into higher adoption on a much larger scale as well. So right now, the early experiments done over the last few years by many of the startups, many of them are maturing and hold immense promise.